If you wish to speak to any item on the agenda or during the public comment portion of the meeting, please fill out a speaker card. Each person addressing the board shall have 3 minutes to complete his or her comments on each agenda item for which he or she has filled out a card. The chair has the discretion to determine or alter the time limits on any agenda item. The Board of County Commissioners requests that speakers appearing under the public comment section of the agenda limit their comments or presentations to matters relating to county business that are within the board's control, authority, and jurisdiction.
Please stand for the invocation. Today, the invocation will be given by Robbie Adel. Is Robbie here? I don't think he's here. Okay, we'll have a moment of silence. Commissioner Delaney, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. First order of business is minutes for approval, November 6th zoning meeting and December 11th zoning meeting.
So moved.
Is a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Item E1, resolution, National Invasive Species Awareness Week, District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could I have anybody who is here from the Palm Bay Sustainability Board, Elizabeth Blackford and Doug Hook? Thanks for coming. Whereas invasive species are among Brevard County's most costly threats to natural ecosystems, and whereas invasive species management is an imperative field of study and education opportunity for Brevard County's recreationists, land managers, and water management, and whereas recreation, farming, fishing, and natural tourism have been of vital importance to Brevard County's history, growth, and financial health, whereas invasive species management improves the quality of life for all of Brevard County's residents, and its importance should not go unnoticed. Whereas Brevard County recognizes the need to manage invasive species to protect our ecosystems for future generations. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, recognizes February 23rd through the 27th as National Invasive Species Week in Brevard County and invites all citizens to learn more about the impacts that invasive species have on our local environment and economy, as well as to learn the steps that can be taken to avoid and manage those impacts. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 21st day of February 2026.
Is that your motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Tom second.
Motion in a second. Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Doug
Thank you.
or Elizabeth, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to speak today. Invasive species can and do cause irreversible harm to our environment and our economy. Everyone knows the worst offenders: Brazilian peppers, Cuban tree frogs, air potatoes, and Burmese pythons. But every day, hundreds of invasive species are sold at our big box stores to through retailers to just average citizens who don't know that they're buying something bad. The good news is that the solution can start in our own backyards. As we work to recover from this frost and the damage that it's done to our plants, just be mindful of what you're purchasing and try to do some research and make sure that what you're buying is good for Florida's economy and environment. These plants are sold legally every day at large retailers. Remember that native plants are actually far more likely to survive harsh conditions such as droughts and freezes because they are acclimated to Florida's environment. These can be purchased at many native plant nurseries that are found locally here in Brevard County. Members of the Florida Native Plant Society and the Conradina chapter have provided some information that is available on the websites. There's also the Florida Invasive Species Council, where you can find additional information about invasive species. This will help you identify and avoid any common invasive species, and we hope that you look for those when you're out purchasing your next plant, and ideally pick something native. Thank you.
Jim, do we have a picture? Okie dokie.
Okay, our next item, E2, resolution recognizing March 26 as Irish American Heritage Month. And I have Jim Garrity. Did I pronounce that right, Jim?
Exactly, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Okay, whereas in 1776, nearly 300,000 Irish nationals immigrated to the American colonies and played a critical role in America's war for independence, including 8 signers of the Declaration of Independence that were either of Irish descent or Irish born. And whereas over the years, Irish Americans have continually provided leadership and service to this nation's political, business, and religious establishments and shaped our nation's history with their outstanding achievements. And whereas when the Irish arrived in Spanish La Florida, in the 1500s, they worked as missionaries, mercenary soldiers, planners, traders, businessmen, doctors, and administrators, but quickly became powerful political leaders, with 3 Irish military officers becoming Spanish governors, and Andrew Jackson serving as Florida's military governor following its acquisition by the United States. And whereas Fort Richard Arthur, an Irish-born priest from Limerick, who was appointed parish priest for St. Augustine in 1597, and the ecclesiastical judge of La Florida, established for the first public school in America and opened it for both boys and girls of all races. And whereas 22 presidents have proudly proclaimed their Irish American heritage, and whereas with the many valuable contributions of Irish Americans to our nation, it is only fitting that we celebrate their rich cultural heritage. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize March as Irish American Heritage Month, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 24th day of February, 2026.
I'll make a motion for you, sir.
So motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Jim?
I'd like to thank you all for recognizing the Irish and Irish American people for their contributions to Florida. Thank you for the proclamation declaring March Irish Heritage Month. And don't forget our parade this coming Saturday, March 14th at 10 a.m. in downtown Melbourne. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. We're going to do a quick picture.
You're going to get your snappy one, too.
Okay, sure. I'll start with yours. All right, here we go. All right, ready? All right, hold on one more. All right, here we go. All right, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You have a great day.
Thank you, Jim, and having Kennedys and McKnights in my heritage, I guess we all have a little bit of Irish in us, if we live here. Okay, our next resolution will be resolution recognized March 26th as Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. Samantha? Whereas bleeding disorders that include hemophilia, von Willebrand's disease, and rare bleeding disorders are characterized by blood not clotting normally due to the lack of clotting proteins, also known as clotting factors. And whereas in the United States, more than 20,000 individuals live with hemophilia and rare bleeding disorders, with 6,000 of them living in the state of Florida, and 1 and 2% of the American population have von Willebrand disease. And while treatment can help, the conditions are yet to be curable. And whereas symptoms of bleeding disorders include unexplained and excessive bleeding, large and deep bruising, nosebleeds, and bleeding into joints, muscles, and soft tissues. And if someone has a bleeding disorder, they may have extended bleeding with incidences such as injury or trauma, menstruation, surgery, or dental procedures. And whereas the Bleeding Disorder Foundation of Florida, founded in 1996, supports the bleeding disorder community throughout the state, and its mission is to improve the quality of life for people with the condition and their families through education, information, referral services, advocacy, support, and research. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby proclaim the month of March 2026 as Bleeding Disorder Awareness Month, and encourages all citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of these serious bleeding disorders. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 24th day of February 2026. And the motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second by Atkinson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Samantha Nazario, and I am a Melbourne resident in Brevard County voter. I am honored to accept this proclamation for Bleeding Disorder Awareness Month on behalf of my family, the Bleeding Disorder Foundation of Florida, the National Bleeding Disorder Foundation, and Mi Familia de Sangre all over the world. I am a mom who's walked this path for 20 years. When my son was diagnosed with von Willebrand's disease 2 decades ago, our family began a journey defined by resilience and the weight of a million silent worries. As our new reality began, thank God, the first thing our hematologist did was connect us with the foundation. The foundation is a huge part of mine and my family's lives. It has been the engine of our growth, educating us on how to advocate at local, federal, and national levels. By providing us with consistent cutting-edge research, the foundation empowered us to stand up not just for ourselves, but for the 120 other rare blood-borne illnesses that rely on our collective voice. In this community, we found a true family where color, political party, or background don't matter, proving that with the right proactive care and the right voice, we don't just survive, we thrive. But today, the ability to thrive is under threat. The cost of staying alive for our community is staggering. Routine life-saving medication for 1 year costs between $300,000 and $500,000 annually. If complications arise, God forbid, such as a car accident or an injury while playing ball with their friends, the cost can instantly skyrocket and pass over $1 million a year. This is why federal support is non-negotiable, yet we are witnessing a systematic dismantling. As of April 1st, 2025, the CDC was effectively gutted. Experts with decades of experience in bloodborne illnesses, the very experts who have protected us from threats like HIV and hepatitis, and many more, are placed under administrative leave or fired. Nationwide, the CDC has lost a third of its workplace, roughly 4,300 employees. This mass exit leaves fewer experts to monitor the safety of our nation's entire blood supply. I'm going to repeat that again. This move threatens the safety of the entire nation's blood supply, not just for the chronically ill, but for every citizen who may one day need a life-saving transfusion. The financial impact on Florida is severe. Projections show that our state stands to lose over $50 million for public health infrastructure. Hemophilia treatment centers in Florida, such as UF, Miami, Arnold Palmer, Nemours, St. Joseph's, Hopkins, All Children's, are bracing for loss. This vital surveillance, simultaneously, the National Institute of Health grant terminated, has disrupted over 380 active clinical trials, affecting over 74,000 participants. That's more people than live in Melbourne, including those right here in Florida at FAMU and UCF. The pressure is hitting a breaking point in our own backyard. I've personally taken calls from families in Brevard and beyond who are terrified as they watch monthly marketplace premiums jump from $30 to $167 and beyond. For a young adult like my son starting their independent life, that $160 is a wall. When you are managing a $300,000 a year condition, losing insurance is a direct threat to your survival. For 20 years, I fought for my son. Today, I'm fighting for the families who are being priced out of care that they need to live. This proclamation brings the struggles out of the shadows, and I greatly appreciate you all for that. But our work is far from done. This is an ongoing real struggle for survival. Thank you for recognizing our community commissioners. Mr. Altman, thank you for your tireless years of advocating with us, even on a national level. At the end of the day, we all have one thing in common. We all need our blood products to be safe. We all need affordable access to health care, and we need no American left uninsured.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for being here and bringing awareness to these very important issues. We have E4, presentation, local option gas tax authority, and that is a District 1 request.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do we have a time frame for the presentation?
I don't think so. How much time do you?
I trimmed it down from the TPO presentation, so I'm hoping for about 10 minutes.
That's great.
If that works for.
Do you want me to just do the clock so that you know? What
I was going to joke around that I'm on the timer, so.
Thank you so much for coming today. I figured since we're talking about, funding today, this would be a great opportunity. And I really enjoyed your presentation at the TPO, and I was just grateful that you were willing to share it with us today. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, good morning, commissioners. So I'm Travis Hills with Kittleson and Associates on behalf of the Space Coast TPO presenting Funding the Future. As I mentioned, this presentation is an adaptation of what we presented a few weeks ago to the TAC, CAC, and the board. So a little bit more streamlined and focused on what you all will be wanting to hear about. So as a brief introduction, or a brief agenda, I'll talk through a quick introduction about what the presentation is going to be covering, and then really focusing in on the local revenue sources that are currently being used to fund transportation projects, and then some additional revenue options that are in play. So for the introduction, so as we all know, current revenues cannot keep pace with the infrastructure needs that we have. The TPO has a large backlog in their LRTP of unfunded and some funded roadway widening projects, a lot of intersection projects, a lot of projects around the county that help mobility and safety for all the residents. So understanding what those existing sources of existing revenue are being levied is essential for that long-term planning that's being done both at the MPO level and the county level and the local municipality level. So there are some opportunities exist to leverage potential future funding, and we'll talk through a few of those in this presentation today. So this is from the board strategic plan. So this is the number one priority for the Space Coast TPO board, which you all are a part of, and it's expanding and leveraging regional and sustainable funding sources to increase priority project implementation. So making sure that those projects that are at the top of the list for Brevard County residents are getting implemented, they're getting constructed. So the problem, as we all know, current gas tax revenue is not sustainable, has not been increased in a couple decades, and it's just not keeping up with what we need to build these future projects. So the performance measure for the governing board is really to take an active role in exploring what those different funding sources are to hopefully see if we can provide some additional money for these projects. So not all doom and gloom. I want to set the stage for kind of what's been done over the last 25 years in the county. A lot of projects, both ranging from roadway widenings, a lot of interstate projects, new interchanges, all the way down to intersection improvements and new multimodal trail facilities. So you see that column on the left, I-95 6-lane widening, US 1 6-lane widening, Palm Bay Road, Barnes, and then the upcoming Ellis Road 4-lane widening. And then really what's unprecedented is 5 new interchanges constructed in the county over the last 20, 25 years. You don't really see that type of growth, a lot of that investment in one county across the state. And then also projects that have been funded with local funds, state funds, TPO funds are those kind of pre-phases that go in before construction. So the design, the PD&E, project development environment phases, also some of those bridge projects that have been constructed, and then miscellaneous projects that are funded, whether it be new alignments, the upcoming traffic management center construction for the county, or potentially, hopefully, a future intermodal rail station, which is a future project. So I want y'all to kind of keep this in mind as I transition to the next slide, that there's been over $1.1 billion, probably closer to $1.5 to $2 billion invested in the county via all these different funding sources over the last 25 years. So what does that mean moving forward? So looking at potentially the unfunded needs, so really that column that you see on the right-hand side of the chart, we're looking at about $2.65 billion worth of roadway projects in the next, that are currently in the latest LRTP, Long Range Transportation Plan, for the Space Coast TPO. As you'll see where that red line comes across, we're projecting about $460 million in terms of revenue available to fund these projects, which is about 9 or 10% of the total funding needed for these future projects. So just stark contrast in terms of how much has previously been invested, the $1 to $2 billion moving forward over these next 20 years, we're only projecting about $460 million. So there's a lot of different ways that we utilize different funding sources for those projects. So the federal funds that you see on the left, those filter down through the Space Coast TPO, get applied to the different project types that you see. There's also state funds, so these are administered by FDOT for the state roads in the county. And really where we're going to focus in today's presentation is on those local funds, so the fuel taxes and road impact fees. So reviewing current local revenue sources. So getting into gas tax, these are the first 2 slides. There's the constitutional gas tax. So this is a 2-cent tax where 20% comes down to the county. It's collected statewide and distributed to each county based on population. It's about $1.5 million of revenue generated for the last fiscal year, or for this upcoming fiscal year projected. And then there's also an 80% portion of that 2% that the county doesn't directly see, but it goes toward bond repayment. So that 6.9 isn't necessarily a number that the county sees directly, but goes to those previous projects that have been funded through bonds. And then looking more locally at the local option gas tax. So there's 2 different pieces of this right now currently being levied. The first is a 6 cent. So this is collected within the county, distributed to the county and the local municipalities based on interlocal agreement. This revenue generates a revenue a little bit over $13 million per year, and that's the projection for this upcoming year. And then there's also a local option gas tax. This is the 9 cent, and I know you all are probably pretty familiar with this, but for folks that aren't, I have a table showing how this all lays out here in a few slides. But there is an additional 9 cent that's only being levied for diesel fuel in the county. That's actually being levied statewide. And that's about $2.2 million worth of revenue. And then the last that's being collected in the county is the county motor fuel tax. That's a 1 cent tax on gasoline and diesel. And the revenue generated upcoming is about $3.4 million. So just wanted to kind of sit on this slide for a couple seconds and just show where Brevard County is in terms of statewide gas taxes being levied. So there's currently 35 counties leveraging the max of 12 cents on the fuel taxes. Brevard County is one of 11 that's only leveraging the minimum of 6 cents. So, there is some money being left on the table in terms of those gas taxes, those fuel taxes, with Brevard County being on the lower end of that spectrum when you look across the rest of the state. So moving on from gas taxes, and the last current local revenue source are transportation impact fees. So these are assessed whenever there's a new development, whether it's residential or commercial, by those different land uses. So the different land uses bring a different amount of money in for the county or the local municipalities. Impact fees are collected for everyone across the county for all the different municipalities, and they're being distributed based on interlocal agreements. The annual average for the county is a little bit over 10 million. The fiscal year 24 balance was a little bit higher than that at 16 million. The one key thing here, the impact fees were last adjusted in 2001. So you look at the last 25 years of development and potentially how much revenue could have been generated if those impact fees would have been adjusted. There's a little bit of discussion there. And then the cities adjust their own. They can adjust their own yearly depending on what their different ordinances are. Palm Bay spoke up during the TAC-CAC. It looks like they update theirs annually or at least look at it annually. So moving from current to additional revenue options. So the first being discretionary sales surtaxes. And I know you all have had a lot of budget workshops over the last few weeks, so I'll keep this relatively brief. So I know you all have talked about this quite a bit, but the couple different sales surtaxes that we were taking a look at is the charter, county, and regional transportation system sales surtax. This is up to 1%. Simple majority required for a referendum to be held at the general election. And going back to the presentation that Mark Bernath gave, this could generate anywhere between $25 and $100 million for the county share, and then a little bit higher than that when you factor in the locals as well, local governments. So in the second sales surtax is the local government infrastructure surtax. So this is either 1 or half or 1%. So currently this is where the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program, or the lagoon tax, currently levies a 0.5%. It's scheduled to expire later this year. So there was some discussion about whether, that goes back on the ballot, that's part of this equation, and whether or not we would want to modify this referendum to include another 0.5% for infrastructure. And then you see the numbers at the bottom, generating $37 million for the county and about $70 million, $68 million total. So then local option gas taxes, so looking to explore those. So like I mentioned, the table on the right shows that 1 to 6 cent. That's what I talked about before. That's currently being levied for gasoline and diesel. All of the other orange boxes, the 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, are not being levied by the county. Those could be. And then the 9 cent is being levied for diesel only. So then you see the red box for not being levied for gasoline. This could generate a little bit over $6 million for the county share annually, and that's for the 5 cent. And then the 9 cent could be an additional $2.7 million annually as well. And then two other revenue sources that could be discussed are mobility fees. So it's an alternative to transportation impact fees, requires a local mobility plan that identifies different multimodal networks and those priority projects. What this does is gives a little bit greater flexibility to fund sidewalks, trails, transit, complete streets, a little bit different than just your traditional roadway widening or capacity projects. The one thing to note is that mobility fees would replace transportation impact fees, so you can't have them both be levied for the same jurisdiction. And then the last is a public services tax. And so this is also presented in Mark's presentation, but anywhere between a 1 and 10% tax levied by the counties or municipalities on different public services, electricity, natural gas. This could provide another revenue option, pretty sustainable. The only issue is that it would go into the general fund, so you would need to actually set aside those funds for transportation projects. And then depending on what that tax percentage, anywhere from $3 to $33 million annually, depending on the rate. So in the last few slides here before I wrap up, so a big table with lots of numbers in it. Really what I want you to do is focus on the lower right-hand corner, the $1.2 to $2.2 billion. That's projected from the 2045 Long-Range Transportation Plan. That's the potential revenue that could come into the county depending on how many of these different additional funding sources could be levied. Now, this is looking at just the sales surtax and the local option gas tax. This does not include mobility fees, public services tax, and doesn't include the charter county and regional surtax as well. So this number could be a little bit higher depending on which one of those or combination come in. And then going back to the slide that I had before about the unfunded need, and then looking at that previous table, the $1.3 to $2.3 billion shortfall that we have could be closed with that additional funding that we were projecting from those additional revenue sources. And then my last slide, so the cost of inaction. I won't talk about each one of these in detail, but what we're seeing is these projects, especially the widening projects, becoming fewer and far between. The costs are rising significantly, especially from what we saw over the last 5 years with inflation. And you see every bullet list here, or every project that we have line itemed out, inflation, increased construction cost, really that's the theme, that's the narrative. We also have unfunded needs, so Hollywood Boulevard, Miko Road, those are two unfunded, along with Malabar Road, the widening, the construction is not funded in the LRTP. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did you have anything you would like to say? Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, it was very interesting. Okay, next item is item F, the consent agenda. Do we have any items that we have requests to remove off the consent? Do we have any cards?
None from me.
F6, if we
I'm
could.
sorry?
Can we please pull F6 for staff presentation?
F6. Okay. All right. Any other? Okay. We will pull F6, so a motion to approve the consent agenda would be in order with the exception of F6.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of F6. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move to F6. Acceptance and approval of the internal audit report, internal audit status for FY 2026. Do we have any comments? Any questions?
We have Mark Bernath up here, Public Works Director. This audit was an audit of our Facilities Management Department.
Okay.
So, routine audit that has some findings and facts, and, you know, Mark can, if you want, Mark can explain a little bit more.
Okay. Any other discussions, questions related to F6? Okay, we have none. Motion to be in order for approval.
Oh, I think that he's going to present.
Oh, was he going to?
If the board would like.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
please.
All right.
So, Commissioners, we've had a number of problems with the things that were identified in the facilities audit that we identified a number of years ago. We've just had a challenge of being able to prioritize the available funding. So the audit that took place, reinforced some of the challenges that we were having, namely with our software, as well as being able to objectively look at our buildings and our components and come up with a repeatable, defendable facility condition assessment. And so all of these things started several years ago under my watch, where we first did an efficiency review. Subsequently, we put together a solicitation, and now we're under contract where we are working with a contractor, a vendor, to actually implement our CMMS, or computerized maintenance management software. So we've identified a number of interim measures as well as final measures, but the final measure really is that we successfully implement our software along with the vendor's assistance to establish a facility condition assessment program.
Okay, great.
Chairman, if I
Yes.
may. I just have some questions. So the internal audit notes on page 23 that say that Brevard County's budget book includes limited metrics with little context for goals or benchmarks. And then it gives some examples of some other counties that are doing it differently, that have detailed metrics tied to targets. And I was wondering, have there been any thoughts about possible changes for this year's budget book to reflect that?
So, at least from the public works standpoint, I would say no. The budget book is something that's prescribed by our budget office and our county manager, and we provide some of the higher level metrics that we use. That does not necessarily mean that we're not working on our own internally. In fact, as we discussed during previous briefing, one of the things that we are doing is working with the vendor to come up with best of breed metrics and ensuring that we are operating efficiently. With the current software, that makes that very challenging. With the new software, we'll be able to better manage things like response times and closeout times and that types of thing. Those types of things.
Okay. I really appreciate you guys presenting this information, because it just continues to tell the story of the lack of funding that we have and the vast and diverse need that we have in the county. Basically, this showed that you guys are doing everything you can with what you have, but that limits you all on what you can do because of funding, because of software that's needed and things like that. You guys are basically operating on, 30, 40-year-old software?
The software is somewhat dated. I don't know the exact age. SAP overall has been updated, but we chose not to update the facilities module because we just found that it was not what we needed for in order to move us forward. And so currently our facilities group is largely operating on paper and then imports it into SAP.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Interesting. Okay, do we have any other questions? Is there a motion for approval?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept and approve the internal audit for 2026.
Second?
Motion and second for F6. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Our next item is G, public comments. We have Sandra Sullivan.
Good morning, Sandra Sullivan, St. Patrick Shores. So I want to talk about we the people and listening to we the people. And what I'm hearing here is more tax, more tax, more tax. And I want to talk about some issues that I brought up numerous times. So number one would be the conversation about transportation, right? $2.2 billion deficit last year, which was the size of the anticipated budget at that time. So we've kicked the can down the road for 25 years on impact fees. You went out grateful to Katie Delaney bringing forward to go out and do a feasibility study. It's been 9 months, and I would hope that that comes before you, and it really should be on the agenda now when we're having this conversation about taxing us more, because the developers are not paying their share. And to put the county in this kind of a fiscal crisis is deplorable. I also want to talk about other tax issues. So right now, before legislation, we have Tyler Soroy doing more tax exemptions for space. So space isn't paying their share here. And there's some corrections being made. I brought up some issues before. And in addition, they are making space tax exempt on sales tax with a $6.2 million impact. But I don't see you guys talking about that. So when it comes to we the money and interest, you know, we don't talk about fairly taxing them. It's always to look to the people, we the people, to tax us at higher rates. I want to talk about on FDOT, on his presentation. He talked about how, tax options on that, which I do think we need to look at. But what he didn't talk about is FDOT, 64% of their budget goes to multimodal, and a lot of that goes to space. And I want to bring up that the federal government needs to pay for its own infrastructure. Okay, so this was a $10 million FDOT grant that it says phase 2 feasibility study for Cape Canaveral Space Force Station military regional wastewater plant for the military. Why is $1.81 million of our taxpayers' money going to fund their wastewater treatment plant when they don't pay any taxes? Why are our taxes paying for space? They need to pay their fair share. We need to look at all revenue sources. Thank you.
Chuck Sheridan. I don't think he's here.
Yes, he is.
Oh, he's here. Oh, okay. I didn't see him.
Sandra and I have not talked in a long time, so this is a little bit ironic. Do I have some handouts, do I? Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chuck Sheridan. I live on Merritt Island, District 2. I'm president of Protect, a not-for-profit marine research organization. I'm also a U.S. Merchant Marine Coast Guard captain and a retired general contractor. I'm here to bring awareness of the Starship and Super Starship that were just approved by the FAA, 44 launches and 88 re-entries, plus the testing. My concerns are valid, and if we can fly a helicopter on Mars, we can certainly satisfy my concerns. Nothing I'm saying is intended to hinder the growth of the Kennedy Space Center. I grew up here. All my friends are rocket scientists. It's vital to our community. We depend on it. When I first heard President Kennedy's Rice University speech that we choose to go to the moon in this century and other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, I always wondered what the other things were. And 68 years later, today, I can tell you what they are. The other things are as difficult as going to the moon. They're launching rockets on basically a daily basis and maintaining an environment in its native, natural, primitive, and pristine condition, which is certainly not happening. Reaching for the stars without losing the ground we stand on. That is leadership. While doing research for this, I found a quote from Warner von Braun, Research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. Are we going backwards for convenience? Continuous improvements built this industry. It must guide us now. This morning, I'm speaking specifically about the approval of the Starship and the Starship Heavy. The suppression system uses approximately 180,000 gallons of water mixed with liquid nitrogen to increase the velocity of the water. And when you do that, when liquid nitrogen interacts with combustion, NO2 or nitric oxides are produced, and nitric acid. The modeling in the EIS shows that the local NO2 levels reaching up to 250 times the federal danger limits. And that's not counting the other launches. That's just the one Starship, the one launch pad. Cumulatively, those emissions equal annually roughly 5% of all the NO2 emissions countywide. If you were to take everything that emitted burnt fuel in the county, they'd be 5% of it would be the nitric oxides. Now let's talk about the trajectory, the sonic boom impact. The first stage returns with a sonic boom 6 times the magnitude of the Falcon sonic boom. But the second stage circles the Earth.
I think we've reached your limit.
Okay. I've only got a little bit.
How much more time do you need?
Maybe 40 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll talk real fast.
All right.
The second stage circles the Earth and returns to the atmosphere, returning to Cape Canaveral from the Pacific. The second sonic boom is projected to last between 15 minutes up to an hour. This is not a single crack in the sky. It's a prolonged rolling pressure wave, like standing in front of a battleship cannon firing repeatedly. You hear the boom, you hear the sound, and then you're struck with waves of air pressure, a magnitude of 10 louder than the first stage. I've attached a copy of the FAA record of approval. The numbers that are included in there for the air pressure and noise levels are weighted, which means they're not accurate to what the real numbers are. They're based on what the sound levels are in the county over a 24-hour period, and then what the sound levels would be added by the sonic boom. The sound waves in the launch can be heard for 380-mile radius of the launch pad. The sonic booms will be as far north as Newfoundland and as far south as Peru. In the water, the propagation extends approximately 400 miles up and down the coast and 1,200 miles out to sea. Sound levels significantly are faster in water than they are in air. There's no detailed reef impact studies that show the EIS evaluating repeatedly high energy sonic propagation through the marine systems. And with each launch, we'll have closures of 3.5 hours. And they anticipate that there'll be a 15 to 20% loss of productivity countywide. The visitor center, beaches, wildlife sanctuaries are projected to be closed 288 days a year with a loss of $280,000 to $480,000. That affects our tourism, businesses, and taxes. Now, combined with the beach line expansion, multiple new bridges, new cruise terminal, bright line expansion.
That was a really long 40 seconds. How much more do we have?
All occurring simultaneously. At what point does the cumulative disruption become economically disabling?
So what you've done really well here, you've given us a phenomenal report at a lot of your own expense. I will commit to really read through this, and
if you read through the EIS, there is not one place, and Mr. Richardson will get a kick out of this, there's not one place in the 52 pages where it says that they shall do this. It says it may do it, it might cause harm, it might not. It certainly will impact our sound-sensitive land areas, but we don't know how much. So
this report, the first 3 pages are your presentation.
Yes, and there's some spelling errors because I did that at 5 this morning.
That's okay. So that's helpful. Did you
But
make
there's
it?
a white paper that I wrote that I've sent out for peer review that's attached to it.
Okay, good.
And then the entire, the study they did
All right.
before they sent out the one with all the pretty pictures
Here's
on
the
it.
white paper, I see. Okay. This
Any
has been
questions?
approved, hasn't it?
Pardon me?
This was approved.
It was
wasn't
approved on the 29th of January.
Yeah.
And then the 30th, they put out the one with all the blue pictures and pretty things and took
Okay.
out a lot of the math. But if you read through it, I mean, I was amazed how they semantically made there's not one item in there that meets any guidelines.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Any other questions we have related to this? Oh, we have another card, but it's another arm. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, I think that concludes that portion of the public comments. We will move on to H1 stuff.
Good morning again, Commissioners. This is a petition to vacate a portion of a public utility easement known as Riviera Isles. This is on Merritt Island. The petitioner has an existing pool and screen enclosure, and while attempting to permit the new screen enclosure, it was determined by a boundary survey that they are encroaching in our easement. This would vacate 5 feet of the easement. We've had no issues in reviewing it with Road and Bridge and the utility companies. After assuming this is approved, they still need a variance to move forward.
Chairman, this is on my district, and I'd like a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next item, H2.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this hearing is for the board to consider a settlement agreement to resolve alleged claims under the Bert Harris Act relating to property on Merritt Island. The dispute that is the subject of this agreement involves a roughly 110-acre parcel along the Indian River on North Merritt Island, owned by Merritt Island Development, LLC, which was formerly Watersmark Development Enterprises. Back in 2006, Watersmark purchased the 110-acre property for $10 million. At the time Watersmark purchased the property, the future land use map designation was residential 1 unit per acre. The zoning designation was EU2, and the property was subject to a 1997 binding development plan that limited total development on the property to no more than 130 units. From 2006 through 2009, Watersmark sought development approvals from the county and the St. Johns River Water Management District for a proposed 84-lot subdivision on the property. As we all know, around 2009, we had the market crash, and they stopped for some time pursuing those plans. Meanwhile, Brevard County had undertaken a small area study regarding land uses and densities in North Merritt Island. And in 2009, the county adopted ordinance number 0921, amending the comp plan. Among other things, the plan amendments changed the future land use map designation for the Watersmark property from residential 1 to residential 1 to 2.5. So it went from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit to 2 1/2 acres. Subsequently, in 2012, Watersmark came back and sought to renew their 84-unit subdivision application, and learned from the county at that time that the future land use map had been amended, and were informed that under the current future land use map at the time, they would be able to develop a maximum of 38 lots, which was a reduction of 46 lots over their submitted 84-lot subdivision plans. In September of 2014, Watersmark filed a claim under the Bert J. Harris Private Property Rights Protection Act against the county. In that litigation, Watersmark contends that Ordinance 0921 reduced the development potential of the property from the proposed 84-lot subdivision to the 38-lot maximum, again, a difference of 46 lots. In an October 23, 2013 pre-suit notice, Watersmark submitted appraisals and alleged a resulting reduction in value of the property from $4.3 million to $1.7 million. Their lawsuit seeks $2.5 million in compensation, together with over a decade of accumulated attorney's fees, expert fees, cost, and prejudgment interest. This case has been heavily litigated. It's already resulted in 2 appeals decided by the 5th District Court of Appeal. After the last appeal, it was sent back down to the Circuit Court, and in December, we had a bench trial in the case on the issue of liability under the Harris Act. At the end of the trial, the Circuit Court judge requested that the parties submit written closing arguments. Settlement discussions followed, and the court has granted an extension of time on the closing arguments to allow us to reach this proposed agreement. If we do not settle, and if the court were to find liability following any appeals, we would potentially have another trial, a jury trial on Watersmark alleged damages. That's how the Harris Act works. It's sort of a bifurcated trial process. Separate and apart from the litigation, the county has long sought to obtain a stormwater outfall in the vicinity of the Watersmark property to facilitate an important flood mitigation project in North Merritt Island. The project will benefit generally the area west of North Courtney Parkway from West Crisafulli Road on the north end to just past Porcher Road on the south. The proposed settlement agreement provides for the county to acquire approximately 25 acres of the Watersmark 110-acre property along its southern edge, going from West Crisafulli and actually east of West Crisafulli, just south of a fine Florida Inland Navigation District site that's located there, out to the river, giving us that needed stormwater outfall. It would also allow for stormwater treatment ponds to reduce pollution discharge into the Indian River. So the agreement provides for 25 acres there. It also provides for the county to acquire a 60-foot wide easement on the northern portion of the property to construct an additional underground piped stormwater outfall that will likely coincide with the entrance to the neighborhood subdivision. Watersmark also owns separately a 120-acre parcel generally southeast of the riverfront property. It's on the north side of East Hall Road, largely wetlands. Under the proposed settlement agreement, Watersmark will remove all non-native invasive plants and junk and debris from that Hall Road parcel and comply with regulatory mitigation permit requirements. Once that's all accomplished, Watersmark will then convey the 120-acre Hall Road parcel to the county. The Hall Road parcel will be stripped of all development potential, never be developed. It'll be maintained by the EEL program for preservation and conservation and continue to provide important stormwater storage for the area and mitigate against future flood risk. That parcel is generally in the area. We had a zoning meeting a few weeks ago where you saw a lot of residents of North Merritt Island concerned about flooding and conditions in that area of North Merritt Island near that Hall Road parcel. Brevard County will also acquire a little over 2 acres located on a small peninsular-shaped horn on the river alongside the 110-acre property. That horn parcel will be maintained by the EEL program for preservation and conservation with possible potential for recreation uses if access allows. So as part of the agreement, the county gets an easement and 2 stormwater outfalls and a total of about 147 acres of property. In consideration of these land conveyances and agreements, Brevard County will pay Watersmark a total of $3 million with the allocation noted in your fiscal impact statement in the agenda. It's roughly $1.49 million total from SORL for stormwater treatment, $588,000 from an FDEP grant for that West Crisafulli road drainage improvement project. There is a change we had indicated in the agenda report up to $562,828 from the North Merritt Island West Crisafulli Church Street Capital Improvement Program funds. That was an up to amount. As we focused and gotten a number with the internal allocation, that number is likely to be or will be $442,828. Number previously provided as a minimum amount from the EEL program for its acquisitions was listed as $360,000 in the agenda report. That goes up to $480,000. The total of $3 million stays the same. Those are the 2 changes to the allocation among the funds. The settlement agreement obviously also provides for a release of all of Watersmark's claims against the county. It'd be a mutual release. Their claims, including their alleged diminishment in property value, prejudgment interest, fees, and costs, allegedly exceed $4 million. It will result in a resolution of the litigation subject to the Circuit Court's approval under the Harris Act and under this process we're going through. In addition to the parties agreeing and the board approving the settlement agreement, the Circuit Court is going to have to hear the settlement agreement and determine that it's in the public interest for the settlement agreement to go forward. In consideration of that release and settlement of the lawsuit, Brevard County will restore the development potential on the remainder of the Merritt Island property, that 110-acre waterfront property, from the reduced 38 units up to a total of 84 single-family units consistent with the subdivision plans originally submitted by Watersmark in the early 2000s. That is still less than the up to 130 units that was contemplated under the binding development plan from the 90s. Brevard County will also allow Watersmark to develop a residential marina. Commercial uses prohibited, including refueling. There will be a maximum of 42 slips. That's dependent on the amount of shoreline. There's a formula used for that determination, and depending on how Watersmark affects their subdivision, that could change. They're likely to achieve the 42 units, but if they were to configure it differently, there could be less than potentially. That's all subject to all the normal regulatory agency requirements, including our Manatee Protection Plan, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and Army Corps approval. Other than marina, Watersmark may develop only one community viewing pier with no moorings for boats, and potentially single docks located with larger lots that are going to be north of the existing channel. So at the very north end of the property, their subdivision plans initially contemplated 2 of those lots. That's going to reduce, they're going to agree and put a restriction on the property so they can't have any other individual lots, so there won't be a proliferation of docks up and down the property. It's just going to be this one focused marina largely. Settlement agreement further provides for Brevard County's extension of a sanitary sewer force main terminating at or near the intersection of North Tropical Trail and Porcher Road. That's going to have sufficient capacity to serve the up to 84 unit subdivision. The design for that sewer force main extension is underway in the Utilities Department, and it's going to facilitate planned septic to sewer conversion projects for the area. In mid-February, Natural Resources staff and I met with leadership of the North Merritt Island Homeowners Association. I think most of their board of directors was there. We discussed the settlement proposal. We answered questions. At that meeting, the Homeowners Association board members generally expressed support for the proposal. I see at least Mary Hilberg here tonight, or today, I'm sorry. Lost track of what meeting we're on. And particularly, they were supportive of getting those stormwater outfalls for the important local flood mitigation project and the effect of preserving and conserving the 120-acre Hall Road parcel. So that's the description of the item. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a public hearing, so we should take any cards before any board action.
Okay, we have one card. We have 2 cards.
And I should say the attorney, I'm sorry, for Watersmark, Jeff Petty, is here, as well as the engineer for the proposed subdivision. Jake Wise is here as well, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer questions the board may have if you have questions for them.
All right, any questions of the attorney and the engineer? If some generate as a result of the card, we can ask him later. But okay, Mary Hilberg?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Hilberg. I live in 3780 Sierra Drive in Merritt Island. And we did, in fact, have that meeting, and it was a very productive one. While the North Merritt Island community generally prefers that property not be continually developed there because of all the obvious problems, we're aware of the outcome of the efforts of regarding this particular area. And we were going to rely on their judgment of our county professionals in the legal and stormwater and environmental areas for this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another card.
Sandra Sullivan. So that sounds good about having, addressing some of the stormwater issues. So when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. What I want to add is a little context in addition. So after Hurricane Irma, there was a huge amount of flooding up there. And there was a small area study done at that time as well that found that the North Merritt Island should be changed to from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 2.5 acres. Unfortunately, there was some lobbyists involved, and that sort of went away. So then there was a $500,000 hydrology study done by former Commissioner Lober, and that study showed that there's a lot of flooding coming from space. And so this goes to a bigger conversation that I'm very grateful to Commissioner Goodson in bringing up the space impacts to North Merritt Island. And so he held a meeting and looked at, it'd be about $30 million to address that. And I just want to say here that, he's expressed frustration at various meetings when Space Florida has come here that they're unwilling to accept paying for the stormwater impacts. I also want to bring to your attention, as it relates to this bigger issue of the stormwater impacts. So at the incorporation study, they said $5 to $10 million a year for flooding impacts from federal interests as part of that study. So the documentation is there. So what I have two questions or two concerns. One is, why isn't Space paying a stormwater assessment fee like we are? Number one. And number two, why is the city of Titusville doing the site planning and building permits for unincorporated Brevard in North Merritt Island? You guys have known about this since 2010, since this started. And I know from where I live, where it used to be South Base Housing was in unincorporated, and Air Force wanted more density. And the county said, no, under this FDEP permit, or FDEP, agreement under Florida Community Trust, we can't do that because we're bound by agreement. So they went to the city of Satellite Beach. Will you do it? And even when it wasn't in their jurisdiction, they filed to increase the density. So the Air Force went and annexed that to the city. So the jurisdiction it's in has the influence to address the site planning and building permits. And I have to think that this is by design, that this is being done to hide it from the public. And there needs to be accountability for Space. Space needs to pay for its impacts to the flooding that North Merritt Island is experiencing from that $500,000 study that shows that.
Okay, that's all the cards. Yes.
I'll yield.
Oh.
I was just
Commissioner
going to ask our county manager, because I had asked about the Titusville doing the site planning thing, but from what I understand, that's no longer the case. And right now, if I'm remembering correctly from our conversation, no one is doing site planning for Space?
If I remember the conversation, yeah, we're not aware of anyone doing the site planning, yes.
Which, that's equally as nerve-wracking.
But that really has nothing to do with the issue that we're discussing here.
It has nothing to do with this issue.
Let's talk about that at a later time. Let's focus on the settlement agreement so we can try to get this. Commissioner Feltner?
I just want to say to Morris, I think from our executive meeting and what you were able to take forward and get a settlement agreement that's, I think, good for everybody and bring it back here today. I think this is the best product that we could hope for. And when the board's ready, I'm happy to make a motion for this. Thank you.
Commissioner Goodson?
Since it's my district and you're making a motion.
I'll yield to the gentleman.
No, we've fought for an outfall structure, a flow line. Morris has done a great job, I think, or the best job he could do. And I'd like to move that we instruct our legal department to proceed forward and bring back to the board the final decision.
Second.
Okay, motion by Goodson, second by Atkinson.
May I just clarify that motion? Will that include, I know it's a long requested action, but there are a number of things we have to accomplish, including approval of a settlement agreement subject to final review and approval of county attorney and risk management, authorizing the acquisition we discussed for the total of $3 million as described in the allocation in the fiscal impact statement as I had modified it here. And I should note also, very minor, but we did move apportionment of a appraisal from the EEL side of the equation to the Stormwater CIP fund. The motion would also include authorization for the chair to execute the settlement agreement upon approval, and for the chair to execute an amendment to an FDEP grant if necessary, so that those funds can be spent solely on land acquisition for the drainage project. Authorize the chair to execute a declaration of restrictive covenants running to be recorded and run with the land for the portion of the property acquired for the drainage project with FDEP grant funds. That might be an FDEP grant condition. Approve a waiver of the EO land acquisition manual to facilitate the acquisition of the 120-acre parcel and 2-acre peninsular parcel identified for preservation, conservation, and long-term management. And I should point out that 120-acre parcel has been on EO's acquisition list. And then finally, authorize the county manager to execute necessary budget amendments, BCRs.
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Goodson.
I'm all for that.
He's all for it. It's definitely included in the motion, included in the second. Any debate? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're going to take a short break, but before we do that, because we have a lot of cards coming up, since we're talking about settlement agreements, and Morris, you got the floor. Let's move up J1, partial settlement of national prescription opioid litigation. I don't think that will take very long.
Yes, sir. And we have our outside class action litigation counsel here in the national prescription opiate litigation. Mr. Steve Charpentier is in the audience, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have. But just very briefly, as you know, Brevard County has long been a plaintiff in the national prescription opiate litigation. That's multi-district litigation pending in the district court for the Northern District of Ohio. We have already resolved large claims against a wide variety of opioid defendants and secured significant settlement funds as a result, with most of those funds being spread out over a period of many years, decades. As part of the ongoing litigation, we now have another defendant that seeks to resolve the county's claims. Back in summer of 2004, the board authorized adding 3 categories of additional defendants. That included some pharmacy benefit managers and some smaller retail pharmacies, including Publix. Publix has proposed a settlement agreement. They have already settled with most of the potential plaintiffs who sought to amend the litigation to include them as defendants. We are one of the last few standing who have not resolved this with Publix. Based on the formulas used to determine liability and the terms of the settlement, I and outside counsel strongly advise that the board accept the settlement as fair and in resolution of our potential claims against Publix. The settlement amount is a total of $345,000. That's inclusive of attorney's fees of $45,000. Unlike the global settlements that we've already reached in this, it's not spread out over many years. It's a one lump sum, and it's not subject to some of the same restrictions that the other settlement funds have been, such as use on abatement and cessation programs and things like that. So again, I strongly recommend that the board accept this settlement with Publix.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there any questions? Do we have any comments? Okay, no questions. A motion for approval. Is there a second? Second, did you have something?
I was actually going to make a much longer motion.
Oh, well, let's withdraw that motion. Let's hear. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't quick enough. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay, that's okay.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the settlement with Publix, that we authorize the chairman to execute the settlement document subject to approval by the county attorney and risk management. But because of the well-documented connection between opioid abuse and homelessness, I recommend that the settlement proceeds be placed into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund established by the Brevard County voters, created by charter and amendment, and authorize the county manager to execute any necessary budget changes to implement this action. That's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Wow. That's a really interesting idea, and I'm not thinking I'm opposed to it, but I'm just, That just came out of left field, so I'm just curious about that.
So as as our appointee to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, that's where my mind goes. If we wanted to talk about how this money might be used or leveraged, I mean, we have the right people to come and ask questions of. But I think it's a pretty safe place to put this money when we talk about how opioid has affected our community. And it's something that, we should really take care of.
Can I ask a question for clarification here? I think it's an interesting idea. Since that trust fund was created by charter review and the voters subsequently voted for it, there hasn't been any funding into it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe,
Okay.
can we, is there anybody here from Housing and Human Services? And can we hear a little bit more about this?
Since this wasn't on the agenda for this change, can I put in a card?
Let's continue what we're doing here now. I'll think about that.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Commissioner Atkinson has stated, there is a connection between opioid and homelessness. And even with the national, that is one of the sources that we can, approved sources that we can spend the funds on. And if you put these funds into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, then one good use of it would be that it could be used as a match. The state, at the state level, the Florida Housing Corporation, they regularly put out large-scale tax credits that developments can apply for. And when they do that, they have to have the support of the county. And typically, we use our SHIP funds, State Housing Initiative Partnership funds, as the match. So most recently, a year ago, we used $360,000 for the Forest Glen development that came through. And so now those are new units of affordable housing that have to be kept at certain AMIs to serve over the next 20 years. So for example, Forest Glen has 5 units at 40% AMI, 33 units at 60% AMI, 3 units at 40% AMI, and 31 units at 60% AMI. They also will have units set aside to help those with disabilities and special needs. So this is brand new affordable housing units that's now available with the match. So with these dollars, we can put it in a trust fund, and the next time a developer wants to apply for one of the large-scale tax credit, instead of using our SHIP dollars, we can use these dollars and then use the SHIP dollars to help more homeowners stay in their homes with the repair, rehab, and replacement program.
Chairman?
That's good to know we can match. Representative Commissioner Feldner wanted the floor.
Just one of the things that Housing and Human Services does, I mean, obviously trying to keep people in their homes, right?
Mhm.
That's an important part of it. So could these funds, if we designated that today, and I understand it goes in the trust fund, but more geared toward keeping people in their homes. So that's everything from, we can help you with an electric bill this month. We can do some of the, I know there's a whole host of things that you do over there that your staff does, rather than just,
Affordable housing projects.
toward a project. So that's something in the future, and I think that's great. But keeping people in their homes today, is that something that, a caveat that we could put with this today? Jim? Sir.
Thank you, Thanks, Commissioner. I'm glad I brought the charter. It's a non-lapsing fund to use to address the needs for affordable housing in Brevard County. The trust fund shall be used to create and sustain affordable housing throughout Brevard County for renters and homeowners and to increase workforce housing opportunities. So what you're stating would fall under that, as the charter says.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the struggles that I have with the traditional affordable housing is the time limit. And when you reach that 20, 30-year time limit, they get off the hook and all the residents get a nice little eviction letter, and now we have all these homeless people. And I've seen it personally at least 2 times in the past few years. And so is there any way that we could prioritize these monies, aside from the thing that Commissioner Feltner was talking about, to also maybe projects that are willing to have a longer affordable housing component, or indefinitely would be ideal, because I just hate the idea of, a 50-year-old person going into an affordable housing situation and then when they're 80, getting an eviction letter.
The board could definitely consider that as part of written policies and procedures to be established. We have an ordinance trying to implement the charter language that was approved, but there has been no funding into that trust fund. So while we've adopted the ordinance, to my knowledge, I don't believe the board has adopted formal written policies and procedures as contemplated by the ordinance for the use of those funds. So that's something that if the trust fund were funded, that we would bring back to the board for consideration at a future meeting.
Okay. And then as far as the opioid money goes as a whole, I haven't really heard a whole lot as to where that money is going and what we're doing. And so pulling these dollars out of the opioid monies into the affordable housing pot, what does that look like as far as the mission there goes?
Commissioner, if I can answer for Juanita, because I asked the same exact question, so I'm looking at her email. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase here for everybody. So there's $900,000 right now that's been awarded, excuse me, counseling, psychological treatment, narcon distribution, education, circles of care, STEPS, which is the agency stands for Specialized Treatment Education Preventive Services. They have a mobile outreach vehicle. We funded for $700,000. There's been $1.8 million for the public notice relations, getting the information out. I forget a better way of putting it. You're going to be seeing in March, or the plan is in March, we'll be coming back with asking for award of about $600,000 for supporting people in treatment and recovery, $780,000 to serve drug court programs, and then other areas of concentration, $785,000 for living room program, provide immediate access to Brevard County residents who are indigent, uninsured, and unable to access behavioral health supports. So that's a couple $1 million there, and the money's for the next 17, 18 years or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of projects coming through over the next few years. So you can see how that $300,000 would be just a small portion of that.
Chairman Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
So the things that I mentioned about the time limit, is that something that the board would consider looking into as we go forward with policy once this fund gets some dollars in it?
Mr. Chair, I'm interested in several things too by way of ordinance. So I guess the item today, if funding goes into that, then that creates a situation where we have to do an ordinance. So it sounds like we'll have an opportunity to do that. So.
Trick is to get the money in there first.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, we do have a request for a 3-minute public comment. Since if it would have been a consent item, you could have commented, so it's logical. Go ahead.
So I didn't put it in a card because there was a change, Sandra Sullivan, there was a change to put this to affordable housing. And so, from that accountability and transparency portion, that's what should have been stated on the agenda item if that is what the intent here was. I also want to go to like a point of order. Commissioner Delaney seconded, and then the chairman said, undo that, and went to Commissioner Atkinson to do her motion when there was one already at play. So I think that needs to be revisited. The issue I have here, DeSantis came here, Governor DeSantis came here on opioids, made a press release here. This is an important thing. And in my view, these dollars that you get should go to services for these people. And, I take back at this sort of feels to me like a bait and switch on what was on the agenda when the chief of staff for District 3 is on boards of affordable housing. So on organizations. And so I just think that you get a settlement for something, just like the settlement for PFAS. It should going to address the issue. And so just because there's some connection to homelessness, it doesn't mean that somebody who has an addiction is homeless. I mean, there might be some people who are homeless, have addictions, but they're separate issues. So I would like to see this board approve this money going to services, which may be at affordable housing places that are servicing that, because sometimes they have arrangements as part of that affordable housing project to have people come in and provide services. This should go to services. This should go addressing the problem directly, not an indirect problem. And if it was really, you really wanted to put money in that fund, the county was selling property on Barton, had advertised twice, first time didn't get any bidders. And by that charter, when you sell lands, it should be going into that pot. And at the time when I was on the Affordable Housing Board, I specifically addressed that twice in 2 meetings and never got an answer. So, don't be hypocrites sitting up here. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Thank you for your input.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out that in my agenda report, I didn't provide for an allocation for the funds. The funds weren't allocated, so the requested motion is not inconsistent with the agenda item. These funds don't have the restrictions that the other settlement proceeds do, so it's up to the board where to allocate those funds.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will take a 10-minute break. We'll get back here just before 10. We have a pretty lengthy number of cards coming up. Okay, now, thank you for next item. We have, well, help me, what item are we?
I-1.
I-1, okay, I got lost here. Okay, we have quite a few cards on this.
Have staff introduce it?
Yeah, I missed, okay. Let's have staff give a quick briefing on I-1. It's been requested that we get a little bit of a report prior to going to the public hearing.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. On February 10th, the board directed staff to bring back funding options with the infrastructure tax. That was on February 10th. We had 7 different departments. We spoke to all 5 commissioners to put this together for you in a week. So before we get started, I just want to thank the staff and all the commissioners for all the help in responding to our questions, all the work everyone put into it. On the agenda, there's the following options are laid out for the board considerations. There's option 1A and 1B. Option 1A is to preserve the existing solar renewal process that was approved by the board in November. Option 1B is preserve the existing solar renewal, but direct staff to increase emphasis on what I call hard projects like wastewater, stormwater, septic systems within the existing plan structure. Option 2 is to modify and expand the infrastructure surtax, which Sorrel is part of, up to 1%. You would expand infrastructure projects beyond the Sorrel scope, so that would be transportation related and the like. If you did that, you would have to work on an OPAGA review, that's a state function. I apologize. I meant to bring what OPAGA stands for, but it's basically an auditing part of the state legislature. And then we'd also have to work with the cities to rework the interlocal agreement that we have currently for the solar program. Option 3 is the Charter County Regional Transportation Surtax that's used for the development, construction, operation, maintenance of road and bridge, operation of bus systems, and other transportation services. That requires an OPAGA review that can and cannot be shared with the cities, and that they all follow their own timelines. And then there's other options by the board. You have in your package, there's a memo from the county attorney's office that talks about what triggers an OPAGA. It's a memo that includes in there what triggers the OPAGA study and with the dates. District 1 gave us a helpful chart that shows if you did something that requires the OPAGA review on the dates, we have to put everything together. And I love Morris. It's OPAGA, for everybody in the audience, stands for the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability. Now you know why we call them OPAGA. And so we're ready for any questions that the commissioners may have.
Okay, and I'm handing out a document that Commissioner Delaney had produced. Okay, did you want to say anything before we go public?
I just wanted to mention this is in the agenda packet, so the public has, you can just find that online. It's just a timeline for the OPAGA audit. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
I just want to make a comment really quickly. I want to make it clear to everybody up here and out there that I support option 1A. We've heard the public speak here in the commission chambers and out at workshops where we've been, and I don't quite understand why the 5 of us would put in jeopardy something that the public so clearly wants.
Yes.
I would will not be supporting a change to the infrastructure tax. I firmly believe we should be looking at the legislators to see what they are ultimately going to do with property taxes. I don't think it's the best time to try and change a tax. Again, I agree that we need our infrastructure. However, I think that we might wind up with less than we intended. We do not know what ultimately the change will be, good or bad. I will not be supporting it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodson, do you mean you won't be supporting the half-cent sales tax going on the ballot as of now, or you're not supporting a change?
I am not supporting a change to the ballot tax. Right now, the only tax that's going on there that I agree with is the sorrel tax.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's good to know. Any other comments before we go to cards?
I have a point of order question. Will we have, after the public comment, I have some discussion that I'd like to have, or I could have it now, whatever you'd rather for how we proceed.
Well, let's go ahead and have the discussion now, since some of the members of the public have requested that we maybe clarify where we are. That might help guide what comments are said in the public. It might save some time.
Thank you. At our last meeting, the board asked staff to bring back options. I know there's support in this room for simply moving forward with the with the half-cent renewal as currently structured. And that is certainly the most straightforward path. But before we close off board discussion and to the current timeline that requires ordinance changes, I do think it's worth having a conversation about whether we want to consider modifying the surtax, even if it means triggering the OPEGA performance audit. I want to be clear, this isn't about undermining the SORL program. It's about asking whether independent validation and a broader infrastructure discussion might actually strengthen the public trust and position us for better long-term. I'd like staff to walk us through those steps so that we can clearly state what option 2 actually means procedurally and practically. And after that, I'd like us to discuss whether we are comfortable renewing simply as is, or if we think that it's worth exploring an expansion, even if that requires additional review. Virginia, oh, you're already there. Virginia, would you mind going through option 2?
So, excuse me. Option 2 is modifying and expanding the infrastructure surtax up to 1%. At that point, it would go through OPAGA review, and it could, the uses of the funds could be anything consistent with the statute limitations on infrastructure sales tax uses. So there's also requested action. You need to direct staff to work with municipalities to amend the existing sales tax use and distribution interlocal agreements to address increasing the surtax from 0.5% to 1% and expand those eligible infrastructure uses subject to voter approval of sales tax. You would need to direct staff to identify infrastructure project types not currently in the SWIRL project plan, such as public facilities, transportation, drainage, and we would need to conduct a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance no later than April 21st to meet the OPAGA review deadlines.
And so what types of infrastructure projects that are currently outside of the scope of SORL are we missing out on that we can't use these SORL dollars on? Like things that we know are necessary that, we're not able to use these funds on?
The simplest answer is what's right there in the agenda: public facilities, transportation, and drainage, right? The existing tax is based on protections for the lagoon, water quality projects for the lagoon, but the sales tax statute allows other sorts of infrastructure, including public facilities, transportation, and drainage.
And I was also wondering, is there a way to get beyond water quality of only nitrogen and phosphorus? We spoke a little bit about it in my briefing, but the stormwater getting into the lagoon is also a problem. And that's not really measurable by, necessarily by nitrogen and phosphorus.
I would need to work with the county attorney's office. We would to stick with options 1A or 1B, we would need to be, 1A is to be consistent with the current language. The ballot language said improve water quality, fish, wildlife, and marine habitat, remove muck, and reduce pollution. So the projects would need to be consistent with that short description per the statutory requirements. So the question is, to what degree can we document that fresh water, regardless of the pollutant level in it, is also harmful to the lagoon? And does that fit within that ballot language and ordinance language?
Awesome. And thank you so much. And Logan, if you wouldn't mind putting up my first slide. I did some pretty extensive reach outs to my constituents, and this is just one very small sampling of some of the negative comments that I've gotten. I, frankly, outside of the workshops, I have not gotten one positive people saying, keep the tax the same, we want to support it. And so that's why I'm trying to open up this conversation a little bit more, because what I'm hearing is people saying either absolutely not, and part of that's because of the fact that, the space industry is dumping, treated and untreated wastewater, so people feel like they should be the ones cleaning it up. And then aside from that, they're saying we have all of these needs and, infrastructure, that people want all of the infrastructure fixed, not just the lagoon. And slide, if you could go to the next slide, Logan. So broadening, what does it allow us? It allows us to, like we saw earlier with the charts from the presentation from the TPO, it fills this gap that we have. And the ideal thing about a sales tax versus raising property taxes is that this is not simply on our residents, it's on anyone who comes into Brevard, they pay into this fund. And so the OPEGA process, it's really a great thing because it does two things for us. It gets a third party to come in and look at the SORL funds and give a sense of, how did it go? What were some good things? What were some bad things? Where are some ways that we can pull money from elsewhere? Or it'll show us there is no money to pull from elsewhere. So I think that just on its own merit, this OPEGA audit would be a positive thing regardless if we make changes or not. And it's something that the state pays for, so it wouldn't come out of our budget. And, it might turn some of those negatives into positives if they could have a third-party verification that the SORL dollars did get allocated in the right place, that it is doing well. If we could go to slide number 4, please. So I reached out to Brevard Public Schools because they just went through this process with their half cent. And basically, they said that it's a collaborative process. It's not overly burdensome. And it's more about documenting system performance and identifying best practices. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, why wouldn't we want that moving forward? And so that's kind of what is in the front of my mind right now with all of this. And I don't know if I'd be able to support no changes at all, because my constituents have come out so loudly to say that they're not happy with what's going on right now. Thank you.
Okay, all right, then we have a sense. I think we need to go to the cards. First is Terry Casto.
Hi. Thank you. My name is Terry Casto. I'm an Indy Atlantic resident and I have lived in Melbourne for over 50 years. I've been volunteering with the Marine Resources Council since 2013 and on their board since 2016. I served 8 years on the Citizens Oversight Committee from 2016 until 2024, so I have some experience in dealing with restoring and preserving the lagoon. And by the way, I'm here speaking on my own behalf. I don't represent the COC or MRC or any other organization. So I applaud the Commission for getting out in front of the issues confronting the lagoon and dealing with our aging septic sewer infrastructure. The problems are connected and both impact our ability to have sustainable, manageable growth, but the plan to combine the two programs or two initiatives under the same referendum is ill-advised. Let me give you my reasons. The first is that combining the two issues, and I'm focusing primarily on the septic sewer issue because I think when you get complaints from your constituents, that's one of the main things they focus on. So combining these two issues has a negative downside. And why is that? With a single issue, there's one of two outcomes. It either passes or it doesn't. You have a 50-50 shot. When you combine the two together, there are four possible outcomes, only one of which results in the two issues being combined. So combining the two actually reduces our chances of getting either one of those things supported. The second is the question of who should bear the cost. A healthy lagoon benefits all Brevard residents, whether they make their living on the water or simply enjoy the natural beauty. So the sales tax that is paid by everyone is fair. Our visitors enjoy the same benefits, so it's fair that they contribute, and they do, to the tune of about 20% of the total revenue. The cost of improvements to infrastructure, such as septic sewer, primarily benefit the property owners, in my opinion, both existing residential and commercial, and especially new developments. So in my opinion, it's more appropriate that those costs are paid for through real estate taxes and through impact fees. Thirdly, gaining voter approval for the billions of dollars or so needed, and it's a big number, to really deal with our infrastructure problems, and that for now and the future will be a heavy lift. You've already talked about the issues of getting the referendum language and the audits and so on, but there's also the problem of educating the voters so they know what the intent is and how it's going to be accomplished. So in closing, I strongly endorse approval of 1A or 1B. In my mind, there's really not much difference. Half a paragraph. The history of SORO is one of modifying emphasis consistent with the language of the approved plan in response to the Commission's direction. For example, muck removal budgets were reduced in the past, interstitial water treatment was added, and smoke testing were added. So we have the plan has already shown its ability to adapt to new changes, new requirements. It took Tampa Bay 40 years and Chesapeake Bay over 50 to recover. So we've made great strides with our program in the last 10 years, but we still have a ways to go. So let's stay the course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Craig Wallace.
Good morning, Commissioners. Craig Wallace, Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition. Try to keep this as simple as I can. I mean, obviously my concern is mainly with the lagoon, and I understand there's bigger budget issues that need to be dealt with here. But as Terry just said, trying to combine too many things in any tax initiative is going to doom it to failure, and that's my biggest concern. I know you all want to continue on with cleaning up the lagoon. I don't think any of you are against that, totally for that. And you know, where we get the money from to do roads and other infrastructure issues, this is a big issue, and I'll be here to support you in whatever direction you think is best for that. But combining the two just doesn't make sense. So we have a fantastically productive program that has proven itself. In 9 years, we've ended up clearing up the waters. We've ended up reducing the annual algal blooms down to the point where we don't have any of these major algal blooms anymore. That's a phenomenal success from where we were 9 years ago. So this program has proven itself to be effective. What I'm concerned about is that we're setting up questions about should we possibly continue it on? Should we continue it on as it is? We can always add more to it. It's every year it can be adapted, and it has been. So let's continue on that path. We've got a great program. Let's not mess with success. And people said, majority of the people voted for it in 16, and we've been educating people as to what the success of this program is for the past 9 years. I think successfully. I think people understand that. Now, there's always going to be naysayers and people that have issues with any program. So we're going to hear from those, and I understand that. But the majority of the people out there support this program, and I hope this commission continues to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Nylon.
Good morning. That's Nyland with an E.
Nyland.
Thank you. Hey, my name is Matt Nyland. I'm a Brevard County resident. I'm also the president of the Brevard chapter of the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida. And I've been working with my caucus to build support for the continuation of the Lagoon sorrel program. And I've been trying to keep my caucus aligned and working with my team to get my constituents to vote, be prepared to vote in favor of this program. But I get challenges from them when they claim that there's some risk that money that should be going to clean up the lagoon could get diverted to other sources or other problems. They want to vote for a pure amendment that just supports cleaning up the lagoon, and they don't want it to be, there be any questions about money being moved from the sorrel program to do things that are not Indian River Lagoon related. So I get a lot of pushback from my caucus on those issues. So I want to keep them aligned, that we are focused on fixing the lagoon, and that the other issues will be paid for by the appropriate sources in other places. The other thing I get pushback on from my caucus relates to affordability. Right now, almost half the people in Brevard County are either living in poverty or living from paycheck to paycheck. So keeping them to vote positively on taxes, sales taxes like this, will be a challenge in the affordability environment that we're in today. I think increasing it from a half cent to a full cent will really smack people in the face in terms of affordability. I think keeping the number the same at the half cent and keeping it focused on the Indian River Lagoon is a way that we can get this passed. I think if it's increased to a full cent, particularly when it's going to be competing with other sales tax ballot initiatives on the ballot coming up in November, people are going to have to make hard choices about whether they can afford another $500 million coming out of their pockets over the next 10 years. So I'm very much in favor of 1A, and I believe that the sorrel program has demonstrated that they can adapt to changes through time and make sure that the money keeps focused on the appropriate items as we move forward and learn more. And I'm very much in favor of continuing it in that way. And if we do, I'm confident that I can line up my caucus to vote in support of that initiative. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next card is Sandra Sullivan.
Sandra Sullivan. So I'll start by saying right now, legislatively, we have a bill out there that's going to have space not pay sales tax. So they won't be contributing even though they are impacting the lagoon. It's just disgusting. I also want to just say what we were promised when this lagoon tax was initially presented was that this would match state and federal funding. So here's an example. South Beaches is $50 million to upgrade to AWT, which is the high in nutrient loading for reclaimed water. Big issue. And also, we're required to do that. We're under consent orders currently for discharging at not AWT. So what did the lagoon tax contribute? They only matched less than $2.5 million from Sorrel. There was another project to put an area of South Beaches on South Beaches sewage plant, and the state had provided $2.4 million, and Sorrel refused to match it. And it ended up that money instead went to Fort Pierce. So what Brevard has right now is a critical need to address infrastructure. So if you got a house and your roof is falling down, and you're talking about planting pretty flowers, that's not sensible, is it? You need to take care of your critical need. Your roof is falling down. Your infrastructure is a problem. Even back in Irma, when we were dumping sewage. Tampa, the people that cleaned up Tampa came over here and said, the issue is your infrastructure, your pipes and your plants. You need to address the dumping of sewage. So we didn't know this. I found it under consent orders and under documentation on DEP. We dumped 21 million gallons of sewage in 2022 and 2023, and quiet because the county was not reporting its pollution discharges, and in fact was just recently, only just a month ago, put them in. So Sorrel, what it was promised to do to clean up the lagoon, is not doing it. The critical need of infrastructure, of our sewage plants, are not being addressed. Sykes Creek is one of the highest plants of dumping. And yet right now we're looking at connecting space to it. This is a recent bloom that just occurred. Okay, where's the bloom happening? Right where we were discharging Sykes Creek. I'll just say on this tax, and please give me a minute longer, we got mocked. And I say that because there's scientific evidence that the salinity, this is prior to this tax being adopted, salinity causes the PFAS to bind to the muck. And so when you look at the lagoon plan, $2 billion in there is for the removal of muck. $400 million just for the NASA Banana River project, up from $250 million last year.
Sandra, thank you.
And I'll just wrap up with one
last
more.
one.
$160 million of the lagoon tax is going to stormwater basin projects on the Cape. This is a military tax. The military federal government should be cleaning up its PFAS, and it should not
Thank
be
you,
put on
Sandra.
the taxpayers of Brevard.
Our next speaker is Vince Lamb.
Good morning. So I'm Vince Lamb of South Merritt Island. I moved to Brevard County in January 1970. I was fortunate enough to purchase property on Dragon Point in '73 and built a house that I still live in today. I've lived a good portion of Brevard history, I think. Lots of change in human population and in the lagoon life. Arguably, the most important local government accomplishment over my lifetime was, in fact, the 2016 passage of the Sorrel Project Plan. After years of decline, seagrass had expanded in the lagoon after some fixes in the 1990s, but then it all collapsed in 2010 when the brown algae appeared with unusual mortality events for wildlife. The Indian River Lagoon was featured nationally and internationally in the news, and not good news. Then came the massive fish kill in the spring of 2016. Our county government leaped into action. Natural Resources drafted the original Sorrel Project Plan. The half-cent sales tax referendum was placed on the ballot in November of 2016. 62% of the voters approved it. The first contracts to restore and protect the lagoon were issued the following year. More than 9 years later, positive results are evident. Seagrass is again expanding in Brevard County waters for the past 3 years. Algae blooms have become less severe and less frequent over the past 5 years. Fishing guides are reporting better catches. Dr. Dwayne DeFries of the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program has observed that across the 28 estuaries that comprise the NEP, that Brevard County stands out as the most impressive county in these watersheds. His organization recently commissioned an economic analysis by the Balmoral Group that determined that the lagoon shows a $28 billion economic impact over the 5-county region. Last September, you started the soil renewal process by authorizing Natural Resources to begin planning for the next 10 years. 2 public workshops in January showed very strong support from residents. Work is underway to put soil renewal on the November ballot. The Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition and our partners are already working to prepare the voters to approve it. Apparently, there's some questioning going on, as we're seeing now. I certainly recognize the severity of the infrastructure needs. If the county commission pursues these infrastructure needs in 2028, I would certainly offer my support. I would like to conclude by, do you remember the county commissioners who have served this county, like Joe Wickham, Nancy Higgs, and Val Steele, all who have parks and facilities named for them? Do you want to be remembered as the ones who killed the Indian River Lagoon, or do you want to be remembered more favorably?
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carl Weinberger.
Good morning. I'm Carl Weinberger. I live in Palm Bay. The Indian River Lagoon needs to continue the funding of the half-cent soil tax. We're seeing progress, as Vince had noted earlier, with lowering wastewater and stormwater that enter the lagoon, along with the septic upgrades. Slowly, the seagrass is returning to areas in the Indian River Lagoon. Any significant changes to the soil half-cent tax referendum will require restarting a lengthy process of local and state regulatory agencies' reviews, potentially causing us to miss the August deadline for filing the ballot initiative. I ask you keep the soil tax as is and vote on option 1B. The benefits of these projects will help make the lagoon a place where residents and visitors will want to enjoy and visit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Lee Thompson.
Laura Lee Thompson. I live in Mims, and I have worked on and recreated on the lagoon for my entire life. So I saw it back in the 1950s when it was really, really beautiful and healthy, and I saw the worst of it in 2010. And you know what happened in 2016 with the fish kills, it was horrible, bad for tourism, bad for our reputation. We had international bad publicity. And now, you know, the lagoon tax is working. I mean, yeah, I've seen major improvements in the water quality, the clarity, the seagrass coming back. So everything is working. We have an incredible staff. Why would we want to jeopardize what has been working and add other stuff to it? I agree that we need to help our infrastructure, Commissioner, I really do. But I'm afraid that trying to combine infrastructure with saving the lagoon is going to make it really, really complicated to try to explain that to people. And I would be very supportive of coming back in 2028 when you've had time to really iron out a good plan for what infrastructure changes you want to make. We'd be supportive of that, but I do not want to see what's been successful changed in any way. I would support option 1B so that we can add some more things to the Sorrel tax, but that's it. I don't want to see us going for a full penny or adding infrastructure at this time. It's working. It's the envy of every county in the state. Why would we want to change it? Thank you.
Blair Wiggins.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning? I'm Captain Blair Wiggins. I founded the Indian River Clam Restoration Project back in 2019, and really don't want to see any changes to go on to the SOAR program right now. I keep the sales tax the way it is. If you start adding any more taxes in, it's been proven that people aren't going to go for more taxes, so they're not going to vote for it. We just received our first funding from Sorrel last year, which put us over about the 70 million mark of clams released back into the Indian River Lagoon. And with their help this year, we should be able to reach over 100 million clams that we put back into the Indian River Lagoon. Now, the clams are there to improve water clarity, to help all the other projects that are going on out there, whether it be seagrass, any of the restocking programs that CCA does. But any changes, I'm afraid, is going to basically do away with the funding of Sorrel completely, because if you start adding in more taxes, it's not going to be good for the voters. As everybody said here, it's going to be hard to explain and try to get another half-cent sales tax out of people. And just want to say, with Sorrel's help, we've released 3 million clams back in the estuary now, and like I said, we hope to be up over 100 million clams by the end of the year this year. So that's all I need to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all the cards that we have. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Yes.
May I? Thank you. I just wanted to add that I looked up some of the other areas that have done their sales tax last year, and out of 8 different counties, 7 of them passed. Only 1 rejected, going to a full cent. So just wanted to put that piece of data out there. And I guess my question is, if we don't decide to go forward with expanding the tax, I feel like I could support 1B, just to make it really clear about the wastewater, stormwater, septic upgrades, and emphasizing those things. But I guess my question is, for the board, I'm wondering, what are some of your ideas about how we're going to tackle the overall infrastructure needs that we have in the community? Because if we go forward with this and it passes, that holds up this tax for the next 10 years. And so this won't be an option for us. This funding mechanism won't be an option for us. So I'm wondering, what are some other ideas that you guys feel like will fill the hole that we have?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner, this item is about Sorrel, and I think sidetracking us from that at this opportunity is not the right thing to do.
I would have to disagree that this is about Sorrel. This is the infrastructure sales tax. We have marketed it as Sorrel as a community, but this is about infrastructure needs. When I brought this forward, this was about fixing our infrastructure needs and filling that hole. So I'm just wondering, are there any ideas? I haven't heard any yet, and so I'm cautious moving forward by tying up this tax when we don't know what's going to happen with our property taxes. And so if the state comes back and they say, property taxes are done, and then this is held up, how are we going to fund our government?
I'll just say quickly a couple of things. That's an unfortunate thing that we don't know what the state's going to do at this point. I'm not sure that they'll get something done this legislative session. They may even have a special session afterward. I've heard rumors of that. I don't think they can leave us without the ability to fund core functions of government. I don't think any legislation that's been out there so far allows for that. When you talk about infrastructure, it's pretty big. We're talking about a lot. It's not just sewer. It's not just roads. Water supplies, water treatments, all these things, and they have different funding mechanisms. So if the bigger challenge is roads keeping up with capacity, some of those other things, I think that's just one category in the whole infrastructure. So when it's all lumped together, I mean, I think we're doing the wastewater treatment upgrades that are going to be necessary. That's part of utilities. They're working toward that. As far as road funding and these other things, there's partnerships, FDOT. We work with cities on some things. So there's
We
there's
already
a
know that
lot.
there's no money there, though.
I think
I mean, we had a whole
money's-
presentation about it.
Well, before we, I think you asked if other board members had ideas.
Right. I'm not asking to be gaslit, though. That's the thing. And I'm frustrated because
and so
I feel
they're
like
giving their ideas,
there's.
and now it's becoming a point-counterpoint debate, and I just respect their view. We'll have opportunity for debate when we have a motion here. Yes.
For me, this is about supporting the health of the lagoon. I don't like the idea of tacking things onto it. I want it to be simple and straightforward so that people know what they're voting for. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve 1A.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve
Debate.
1A. Is there discussion or debate?
I would like to make a friendly amendment to see if we could emphasize wastewater, stormwater, and septic, like in 1B. I think that from what I hear from the people that have come up, they seem to feel that that's an okay thing. Yeah. Would there be any support for that?
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second? A motion,
Friendly amendment, I think she said.
is it what was the?
I was asking for a friendly amendment to go with 1B to emphasize on wastewater, stormwater, and septic upgrades in the annual project plan.
Okay, would that be a friend?
So for me, I'm not going to accept that friendly amendment because I think that I want this to be as simple, as straightforward as possible. So I would keep my same motion.
I'm sorry, this is before the board.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Just maybe we could get some clarity from staff, because I think what B suggests in there can be done annually with the lagoon plan when it comes before the board each year.
Right.
Each year. So maybe just quickly, we could have staff
Let's have staff.
just answer that.
And that
for
might
us.
end.
Yes.
Can you elaborate further on that?
Okay, yes. I mean, every year, we bring the plan update to the county commission for consideration. And so, each year is an opportunity to shift that emphasis to wastewater, stormwater, septic, whatever is, the critical need of the day. And that's what you have seen in the prior 9 years.
My concern with that-
One follow-up, kind of just one,
Yeah.
while she's on this real quick. And just also too, I think as more dollars become available by way of match from the legislature, so that changes annually too. Each session stands on its own. There's more dollars that were appropriated before, but each year we're going to address that as new opportunities are presented for us to go seek matching dollars for septic to sewer. I think the state is absolutely committed to septic to sewer conversion, right? So I mean, each year you're going to bring that to us as well. Is that fair?
Commissioner Delaney.
Go ahead.
How many septic tanks would you say are in the Indian River Lagoon Basin?
Over 63,000.
And how many have we switched onto septic? Or I'm sorry, onto sewer?
I believe we've converted between 700 and 800 so far.
So, I mean, we can say all these nice things about how whoever supports this, but the truth is that if that was the priority, why hasn't, and this isn't to staff, this is more so to the comment that was made about the state supporting septic to sewer, where have those dollars been? Why haven't more been done? It's been 10 years. And I understand, permitting, and we didn't have all this money to begin with in the beginning years, but it just seems the priorities have been elsewhere. And when I have, there was a kid in my community who got paralyzed in our river. The city of Titusville had to settle with the family. There's some real things that are going on, and the North End holds a lot of, we see Mosquito Lagoon all the time, but it's not within our area. I'm not seeing the priorities changing. And how many times has the lagoon plan come back to the board, and not just this board, but the board previous, and there have been many changes. I can only think of one that had any kind of significant change, and that was when a state legislator came down here and, was not very happy. So I see a lot of issues, and I'm not seeing where the vast majority of people, the people who are in the nitty-gritty every single day working within the lagoon, I appreciate their opinions on this, but what about everybody else who is not in this day-to-day, and they just know that, hey, you shouldn't go in the river when it smells like that, or you shouldn't go in the river when it looks like that. And, when we have so many issues, and we talk about transportation and how that has nothing to do with the lagoon, well, if we could redo our roads and our drainage systems so that all of the stormwater and whatnot was not going directly into the lagoon, that would definitely help. I'm not saying it would fix it. I'm just saying that we could still steer these projects that they have to make sense in regards to fixing the lagoon, and keeping the pollutants out of the water. If we do not stop the sources of pollution from going into the lagoon, we are mopping with dirty water. And until we get serious about septic to sewer, fixing our sewage plants and the pipes, the infrastructure pipes that are collapsing all over the place, and until we can stop the stormwater from getting into the lagoon, it's never going to be fixed. I got a text message from somebody this past week, of their canal, and they literally said to me, "Is this safe?" And I'm like, I don't know, but it doesn't look right. And this person, they live on a canal in Merritt Island. And so I'm just frustrated. We continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. And I'm nervous about locking down this tax without making any changes, and then it being inaccessible for us, especially with what the state has going on.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I just want to make one last comment, sir. And I understand your sense of frustration when you see that things don't happen quickly. I'll just say, this is a long-term commitment. There's no doubt. Hold on. And it's much quicker when you're talking about dredging, just so we all understand, because they can set up quickly and start dredging. When you're talking about digging up roads, running sewer lines, removing septic tanks and hooking up, it took years to put that stuff in. septic tanks didn't appear in Brevard County overnight. It happened over many generations. It's going to take a generation to replace that stuff. But we have to do it. I mean, we have to do it. There are mandates in the state. And I would just say, when you're talking about that, it takes a long time versus the other things. A lot of the other projects, to your point, that people spoke about today are things that can be done today. And so that's why those things happen quicker.
But if the priority, and if the scientists all say that the issue is the septic tanks, the sewage plants, and the stormwater, I'm just not understanding why those things are not the priority.
So I think I'll just say a few things. Obviously, we have significant infrastructure challenges in our county, and we're going to have to address them. And I'm encouraged to hear that the board seems to be willing to do that. And that in of itself is a significant step forward, that we're willing to consider these. There are entities that don't want to even talk about solving problems, nevertheless vote for them. And so I think your input is very helpful, and I think it shows a commitment to fixing and addressing these infrastructure challenges. I've heard the board members voice concern about what's happening in Tallahassee. There's a great deal of unknown up there. We have no idea what's going to come out of Tallahassee. And what we do have with the soil is we have a given remarkable community support. Voters have supported in the past. I think the general consensus of this board is to move forward with the soil as it is, see what comes out of Tallahassee. Probably could be a result of a special session. I don't think it's going to come out this session. And we have a very, very strict timeline, restrictive timeline to deal with. So I'm going to call the question if it's okay. I think the support's there, but I think that gives us an indication of where we can. This will not be done. Even if Sorrel passes, and I hope it does, we'll have a lot of work ahead of us. Yes.
So I'm going to be voting in support of this for today, and not in support of the program, but in support of the people's right to choose whether this is what they want. So I just wanted to make that really clear. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you for those who have come and spoke. Okay, item I2, legislative intent, permission to advertise increase to the stormwater utility assessment. Y'all welcome to stay and speak in favor of that too, if you like. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is kind of the second item from the February 10th board meeting where he directed staff to bring back items. So let's bring back legislative intent and permission to advertise increase to stormwater utility assessment rates. We highlighted the stormwater projects and the effects at the budget workshop. We spent an hour or so describing it to the board. Same thing, thanking the departments again, same 7 departments. We spoke to all the commissioners. So in the agenda for everybody in the audience, there's some options for the board to consider. Number 1 is to direct the revenue to be evenly split between water quality and flood mitigation. Right now, it's approximately 70-30 for water quality, 30% for flood mitigation. Option 2 is eliminate the design credit by providing maintenance credits. That could generate up to about $1 million across the county. A number of people, and I'll use myself as an example, my subdivision has stormwater design, so I don't pay the full $64. I pay $47 or something. This would raise me up to $64. Option 3 is raise the assessment. We have a suggestion of 85.80. That accounts for the CPI since the 2016 implementation. That would increase revenue by about $2.4 million across the districts. That's the chart you see in your agenda. If the board desires option 4, you could add a CPIU to it for the rates. Option 5 is a small one, raise the collection, a minimum collection of $5.01. That would raise about $12,000. I had a good conversation with the tax collector, Lisa, yesterday, explaining how with the $5. So that would allow us to, to make sure we collect what we can. Number 6 is combining all the actions together, and of course, number 7 is other actions desired by the board. If you do any of the options of 2 through 5, or even all 2 through 6, that's going to require assessment letters to be sent before final board approval. The best analogy I could use with that is what we went through last year with the fire assessment. It would be the same similar process.
Very good. Thank you for that synopsis. Any other staff input? Okay, what is the will of the board?
Do we have cards?
We have one. Sorry, Senator Sullivan. I was sitting here holding it.
You didn't get off that too easy. Okay, so we just had a conversation about, the lagoon tax and putting that, to referendum. And one of the things that is funded in the lagoon tax is stormwater. I mean, as Katie said, why is the focus of it on the sewage, the septic, and the stormwater, right? So we just had that conversation. And as was stated here a few meetings ago, when you're talking about flooding and stormwater, we're gonna look to tax the people more. So, this goes to the bigger conversation. By not addressing the critical need of Brevard County, which is infrastructure, you're gonna find ways to tax the people more, bottom line. So here we are with a conversation about taxing the people more for stormwater. Well, isn't this double taxation that we have the lagoon tax that addresses stormwater and salinity going into the lagoon, et cetera, and we're paying for stormwater projects, but, oh, wait, you start looking into a lot of those projects, there's stormwater so that we can build stormwater basin areas for new development. Like up there in Chain of Lakes, there's a big development, 38 acres, destroying estuarine wetlands under soil to build a stormwater basin so you can do a major development for a developer. It's all about we the money over we the people. Let's talk about, again, you got $160 million of stormwater projects in the lagoon tax for Patrick Space for Space and the Cape. So, but when it comes to the people and the people's needs, and the stormwater for the people, let's increase our taxes. Let's increase our taxes in addition to the lagoon tax. Let's increase our stormwater assessment fees. Now, bigger picture here that should start the conversation is what is happening up in Tallahassee with the property tax. Because if the property tax goes away for homestead, we're looking at between a 6 and 12% sales tax. And then you start adding all these other taxes. What's the fiscal impact? How about we start with looking at what is happening up in Tallahassee before we make these big decisions and figure out a long-term strategy rather than a reactive strategy, because that's the way government should happen, proactive management. But that's not what we're seeing. It's always reactive management. More taxes, increased taxes, put it on the people and not address the root issue, which is coming even on stormwater. Space is not paying a stormwater assessment, and they are not exempted by state statute.
Okay, that was our one and only card. Any comment from the board?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So obviously, stormwater issue doesn't affect every district the same. We have a couple of districts who are much more affected than others. For me, it would be really hard to support an increase because D3 doesn't have the same issues that, for instance, D1 and D2 have. So I have a couple of questions for staff, if I may. First of all, could we all have a different split if we wanted to? And my second question is, specifically, let's look at D1 because we've been talking about their heartbreaking issues recently. If they just switched from 70-30 to have 70 more for flood mitigation, what would their numbers look like up in D1 specifically?
So Commissioner, the answer to both of your questions is yes. So each district could have a different rate. When the stormwater utility was established in 1990 and 91, districts 3 and 5 were established in 90, and the rest were established in 91. So the rate could be different. And the split for water quality and flood mitigation could also differ based on board direction. That would not require an assessment letter to go out. The differing rates per district would require that we notice the public, and that would probably be a longer process. You know, when we started talking about this, we talked about a 6 to 12-month process. So kind of changing those rates per district would probably be a 12-month project and a next fiscal year type of project.
Follow up. So if we were to take, for instance, D1's split right now of 70-30, can you tell me what the number is, how many dollars they have going to stormwater right now? And if they change that to 70%, what that number would look like? Sorry to put you on the spot.
And I've got my math major over here crunching the numbers, but right now
Sorry,
they're
ladies.
collecting 2.1 recurring revenue. So 70% is 1.5 million. So, you know, half of would be 1,500,000, or 1 million, essentially, a little over 1
So
million.
significant difference. Thank you.
Yeah, so they'd collect another 500,000 for flood control.
Mr. Chair, a question.
Yes.
If a district were to stay the same, but other districts were to change, okay, the district stays the same, do you need to send letters out to them?
Most likely, I'm 95% sure, but I will verify that. But any change to apportionment, methodology, or rate, generally, it's then treated as a new assessment, and it requires the mailer to go out to everyone who's in the assessment.
And would it say, just so that you know, your rate is unchanged?
It could certainly have language to that effect.
Yeah, thank you. Since we're talking about D1, and not, am I hearing that the board is not interested in looking at the whole county, but we're talking about D1? Is that kind of the gist?
May I? No, because you guys have a really huge
Right.
problem with flooding, I just wanted to know what the numbers were if we were to shift it.
Right.
And also, even if we could all be different.
Right.
So that was my
Okay.
only thought.
If we are only talking D1, I personally would be more in favor of doing the 70-30 swap rather than an increase. But I'm happy to have a broader conversation as well if other districts are looking into this as an option.
I'm not looking at this as an option. If today, as part of a motion, is simply to change your allocation for District 1, that's fine. But I'm not looking to raise stormwater.
May I? So I've been thinking a lot about this. Would I have to tell you today what I wanted my split to be, or could that be something I tell you later?
The board could give that direction at any time, and then we would analyze the projects in queue for your particular district and
okay.
let you know what those impacts would be.
So if I may just throw my thoughts out about the other things, I think raising the minimum fee to $5 is for me, sensible and easy. A design credit, I think we should eliminate it, because if what we have are a bunch of systems that aren't actually exceeding the standards, then it's doing a disservice to everybody else. So I would support eliminating the design credit. I'm not going to support a stormwater assessment, and I'm not comfortable supporting attaching it to CPI so that we have automatic increases. So for me, I would say let each district split the revenue as they see fit for their district. Design credit, eliminate it, and the minimum fee up to $5. That's what I feel comfortable with.
May I have a question? And so does that mean that we would have to come before the board, or each commissioner could work directly with staff in regards to their split? Commissioner Atkinson, I'm sorry. That was a question for you.
So, I don't know. I don't know how I would do it is I would go to staff, I would look at the programs that we have, or the projects that we have in line, and try to figure, I would work with staff to figure out what the right split would be for my district, because you guys have more experience and you know what's in line and who it affects.
I'm looking at Morris. There is language about needing to document need for any sort of assessment. So we would need to go through the process of identifying, what your needs are district by district, and I believe maybe apportion the fees according to those needs. Is that?
As far as the split, there's a lot of discretion because that wasn't part of the ordinance adoption. It's not really part of the methodology, but at the same time, it's not entirely arbitrary either. It's not a lever that you can move just at whim, because some consideration does have to be given to our requirements to comply with BMAP and things like that on the water treatment side. So I'm just cautious to say, I don't know that it would always be possible to completely lever down water quality and up flood control, for example. But yes, if we start changing any of the numbers or the methodology or apportionment or the way we get there, that all requires study. It has to support whatever's adopted. There has to be a benefit to real property in order to have a valid assessment. And then all of that would require new notice, except for the 72-28 kind of split, with the caveat that there are some limits on how much you can move that.
Okay. If it's all right, I feel like I'm comfortable with making a motion, and if there's any other board input into this, please feel free to add an amendment. I would like to make a motion to allow each of the commissioners to work directly with staff to decide on the split. And then I would like to also eliminate the design credit and raise the minimum fee collected by the tax collector to $5.01.
I'll second that because that's exactly what I wrote.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-1 with Commissioner Feltner voting against. Okay. All right. Do we have any cards? I lose J2? Sandra Sullivan. J2. Let's have staff to introduce the...
Thank you. Thank you so much. I decided to bring this back up for conversation because I believe it was tabled when I brought it up the first time. And just because I figured we were having this broad conversation of stormwater, infrastructure, all of that. So I just wanted to kind of bring it up since we were having this discussion.
Okay.
Our first card.
Yes, Sandra Sullivan.
Sandra Sullivan. So just a couple notes on this, having attended a lot of TPO meetings. So they've seen this coming, that the gas tax, and you have to put in what the other considerations are. The gas tax, because of the number of EVs, electric vehicles, who don't purchase as much gas, it has historically met, the needs for roads. And unfortunately, because of the number of EVs. So just, Brevard is at the lowest end of the tax, as you saw in the presentation, 6%, compared to, there are 11 counties at 6%. So I appreciate the fiscal conservative part there. But, so if you increase it, it's not fixing the root underlying issue, which is the EVs. And then you're putting more tax burden on the people who choose to drive gas while not addressing the root issue. Now, you have a lobbyist, and this is an issue that has been known for years. It was predicted back in 21 and 2022 that in 2025, we're going to be at a point where it's not bringing in enough money for paving roads and such. And so I would just say, again, a lack of proactive action to addressing the issue legislatively. You have a lobbyist. There needs to be a solution to where the people with the EV vehicles are paying their share towards the wear and tear on the roads, because those heavier vehicles typically, you know, they are having an impact just as gas vehicles are. So the burden shouldn't be on gas vehicles alone to fund that mechanism for paving roads. And so if you have this conversation, I think at the same time, it's important to come up with a solution for what the underlying root issue is and how you address that as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's our only card. Submit it back for. Sure.
This will be a few seconds. In that study I gave you, it also states that the sound-sensitive ground, which is basically the barrier islands, that asphalt will last less than 2 years on the roads. So we're going to be looking at a big increase in our road resurfacing.
Okay. So let's have staff, if we can, to go over what our options are specifically here today to highlight that again.
Mr. Chair, the staff didn't put this agenda item together. You have a couple gas tax available there. You have the 1 through 5 cent that hasn't been implemented. And then you have what's called as the 9 cent. It was implemented on the diesel side and not on the gasoline side. You could, by supermajority vote, you can implement both of those gas taxes. So if 4 of you voted today, if you do a deadline, I think it's October 1st, and the tax will be collected January 1st, I believe. I'm not certain on that one. Or you could vote by just a simple majority to put it on the ballot for the November general election, either this year or 2028.
Those basically are what's in our agenda packet, the 4 items. Take no action.
Yep.
Provide further directions or next steps to staff. That was less clear. Adopt a 5 and/or 9 cent local option gas tax with a supermajority vote. And approve placement of one or more items on the ballot. I have a question on the adopt a 5 cent and the 9 cent. How much revenue would that generate a year?
If Travis can yell it out, it was in the slides. I
think it was there.
I think it's 9.1 million.
Hang on one second, folks. I actually have the
6.4
yeah.
annually for the 5 cent, and then 2.7 annually for the 9
There you
cent.
go. He's got it.
Gas.
Yep.
All right, a little over
There it
6
is. It
million.
took me a minute to find the chart. We agree with
Now, a
Travis.
question I have on that, and I think I know the answer. Is that bondable? Are you able to bond that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if we enacted it, would we need to delineate how many years, or is the statutory formula limit the number of years?
I am not sure of the answer to that. I don't think you delineate the number of years in the gas tax, but I will verify.
And the question I have is, if we decided we wanted to enact it, would we have to write an ordinance and advertise that?
Yes.
We couldn't enact it today. We would just give direction to staff to prep for and that could probably answer.
It would be legislative intent to
Right,
prepare an
right.
ordinance and bring it back.
Okay, I'm going to pass the gavel. And I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the 5-cent and 9-cent local option gas tax by a supermajority vote. And I'll make that a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion fails.
Okay.
All right. With that, if we wanted to bring this back at another time, would it be best to table this item, Morris? Or is it okay to let it die and can it be brought back again with Robert's rules?
I mean, that's the board's pleasure, but an action motion was made and failed, so that could just naturally end the item. There's nothing really to prevent a commissioner from bringing it up at some point in the future should they
Okay.
desire.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only other action we would have here would be to vote to place the local option gas tax measure on the ballot, which I would normally support, although that said, given the discussion we had earlier today about Sorrel, that could jeopardize Sorrel, so this may not be the best time to do that. We probably wouldn't have the votes to do that anyway, so.
May I make a quick comment, too?
Yes.
Also, we've got budget workshops we still need to get through.
Right.
And that might be sensible to talk about this again after we have those budget workshops. We might learn something.
Yes. I think I was here when we implemented the 6-cent local option gas tax, and the economic growth as well as the quality of life growth was tremendous. I used Melbourne Airport as an example. That I'll just go through some of the projects, and we're facing severe congestion problems in the county. But in that project, State Road 3 was 2-lane. Can you imagine if we still had a 2-lane State Road 3? You wouldn't be able to get to the Cape. All the roads, NASA, Babcock, Derry, Evans, Wickham, Apollo were all 2-lane roads. You wouldn't be able to get to them from the airport. So we were able to actually show how we could save the consumer money in terms of drive time, wear and tear in your vehicle, gas consumption, by doing those road improvements. The other thing is we noticed most of that gas tax is paid for by tourists. So we're infusing a lot of money from the outside to come into our community. And then thirdly, we lowered some of our MSTU property taxes. So I make that motion, want to get a sense, but I hope we do at some point in the future consider that as a potential revenue source that will pay great dividends for Brevardians. That said, okay, we'll move on. I think that ends our agenda. We have no public comment cards. All right, we'll have County Manager.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County Attorney?
I have no report, Mr. Chair.
District 1?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to give a short update on some of the boards that I participate in. And so we had our CFX meeting this past month, and one of the big things that came out from that was one of the main roads heading towards the Sanford Airport is getting expanded, so that's going to be really great for Central Florida. And we also had our TPO meeting, which a huge piece of the conversation at that meeting was funding for roads and for transportation. And which today, they gave a portion of that presentation. And I guess the last thing I was wanting to see if there's any board support for is possibly a workshop in regards to infrastructure and and possible pathways forward on how we can fill some of these gaps, because, I mean, I've gotten loads of information, not only from our many budget reports, but from conversations and the TPO and all these different things that we're a part of. And so, you know, I feel like we kind of know what our options are. And, you know, from how many of us campaigned, I believe all of us campaigned, one of the things was, the major things was infrastructure. And so I'm hoping that we can maybe do a workshop, a real collaboration to try to see how we can plan for the future and what that looks like. And I'd be happy to bring that forward as a agenda item if I need to, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there to see if there's any support for that.
Can I ask a quick question? Is Mark's presentation is coming up soon? Is it in March?
We're going to focus on the facility side. You know, that's infrastructure. We brought you the stormwater and the drainage, and we've highlighted the roads and bridge, you know, last year too. If you want to add more, we'll add more.
Well, I was going to say we could possibly expand. I mean, I know, is he out there?
Yeah.
I know he can talk for quite a long time on the needs. So I'm okay if we expand his time during one of the workshops. I think that probably gets you there.
I'm more so looking at board discussion, because I feel like we do a lot of listening, and which the presentations are great, and I feel like that's how I've gotten, you know, as educated as I have.
Let me clarify. I don't mind having a discussion during that portion of the workshop. I think that's easy because we'll be on that subject.
Okay.
But that's fine with me.
Thank you.
District 2? No report. District 3?
No report, sir.
District 4? No. I have a few items. One is I'd like to ask the board to approve the chief of staffs of each district as alternates to the canvassing board if the commissioners are able to.
We did that before, sir, the prior board, but I'm happy to make that motion for you if that's what you're looking for.
Yes.
And second.
So motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And just for the record, they've all received training for that, so they're right? Is that my recollection? So they're all ready to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right, well, great. I was asked to do this, so I assumed we need to do it again. Also, I've been asked to attend a meeting in Washington with Brightline in reference to the new station here in Brevard County, along with the city of Cocoa. Would like to ask for approval to make that trip as the chairman of the commission.
Second, or motion?
So motion, is there a second?
Second.
How much, can I ask her, how much do you anticipate that cost? Because that has been an issue for a prior board, unfortunately.
Well, whatever
Is
the
it-
normal,
is it
whatever the normal.
Up to $2,000, something
I'll
along
pay
those?
for it myself.
That's
Don't
not
worry
what-
about it.
That's not what.
No,
I'm-
I will go myself. I will do it myself. I have no other items.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.